Hey, what's up, everybody? A little impromptu video here on some radios that I have laying here on my desk. We have here 4 radios that are very, very similar, but yet different. These first two I find interesting. This is a UV-17, and this is a UV-17R, possibly Pro, but not sure. This is the Radioddity GC-5, and this is a Baofeng, let me see here, UV-21PRO. So the thing that's interesting to me is this UV-17, when I purchased it, the listing said UV-17R, and I will put up a graphic here of a picture of the back of each one of these radios. But on this one, you can see that it actually says UV-17R on the back of this one, which this one also says UV-17R. And then this is, of course, the GC5 Radioddity, and then this is the UV-21PRO. Now, the thing that's interesting to me on these radios is this UV-17 has the old, and I'll show it to you in a second here, has the old display before they switched over to the black with white graphics. And the battery that came with it had a USB-C charging port on it. The UV-17R that has the updated display came with a battery that did not have a USB-C charging port on it. The Radioddity came with a battery that did not have USB-C charging on it. And the UV-21R Pro, UV-21PRO, came with a battery that did have USB-C charging on it. Grab a screwdriver here real quick to put these on, and I'll show you real quick what I'm talking about as far as the interfaces. Now, what's intriguing to me is that when I first purchased the first green UV-17, it was listed as a UV-17R. The radio was branded or labeled as a UV-17R, but from everything that I can find online and other people's videos, etc., this is just a UV-17. Now, here's what I'm talking about here. Let me see if I can get it so that you can see the display. It's got a little bit of a different voice, and it has this this blue background. I got a lot of reflections here. Basically, older firmware, etc., etc. Whereas opposed to the UV-17R has a little bit different voice and has this, I think, more aesthetic display, and a different menuing system. Now, if you see, this radio has firmware 1.11 on it with hardware version 01. I can just see my fan up there. All right. Then we have the Radioddity GC-5, which has exactly the same interface and display as the UV-17R, just with a different startup graphic. Same voice, same menus, etc. And then, oh, and let me just show you on here, we have firmware 0.08, hardware version 01, which, interestingly enough, this UV-21PRO has the same display and the same voice and the same menus, and is also firmware version 0.08, hardware version 01. So this one has a newer firmware. These two have the same firmware. And as I'll show you when we get over to the spectrum analyzer, all 3 of these perform about the same. which is not good, which I find very odd because this radio, which turns out to be, I guess, just a UV-17, this radio is actually clean. This radio is fine. All three of these are bad. So I'll show you that. We'll head on over to the spectrum analyzer and take a look at those. All right, so the other thing that I'll point out real quick before we start looking at the harmonics on these is this UV-17, if you noticed, it's got the lights are on the bottom. This UV-17R also has the lights on the bottom. But then the GC-5 actually has the light back on the top, which then is also interesting because this UV-21PRO also has the light back up on the top. So it's interesting the progression, or I don't even know if you want to call it a progression. It's just 9 million different versions of the same radio, I think. I'm also going to open these and see what they look like on the inside, and we can compare that as well. But real quick, I'm going to save the UV-17 for last. We'll start with, let's just start with the UV-17R. I will attach my little connection here of a 40 dB attenuator and a 10 dB attenuator. So we have a total of 50 dB of attenuation. And we will find my coax cable here and attach. Okay, so we are set up to look at our harmonics.
Welcome. Frequency mode.
All right, we are on 146.5, and let's make sure that that is where our harmonics, yep, 146.5. All right, so let's take a look. Here is the UV-17R. Wow. So here you can see on low power, we're putting out 2.4 watts, 2.45 watts. Our second harmonic is only negative 12 dB down from the fundamental frequency. Our third harmonic is, it actually makes the 40 dB down just barely, but is still above the 25 microwatt line, so that's still not good. And take a look, our fourth harmonic is also only negative 36 dB down from our fundamental frequency and also above the 25 microwatt line. So this radio is absolutely ridiculous on the harmonics. Second, third, and fourth harmonics all fail. So let's just see what it looks like on high power. All right, now we're putting out 4.9 watts, close to 5 watts. If you're looking here, we still have second harmonic, only 18 dB down from the primary frequency. Third harmonic, almost at the minus 40, probably within the margin of error, but still above the 25 microwatt line. And our fourth harmonic actually now is good at minus 52 dB down, but honestly, it's right at that 25 microwatt line. Maybe you could say that's a margin of error, but obviously second and third harmonics already failed, so by the time you get to the fourth, it probably doesn't really much matter. So this radio is just kind of ridiculous when it comes to the harmonics, which is unfortunate because the radio, I like the way it feels in my hand. It feels much more robust than, like the UV-5R, but extremely, extremely dirty radio. So there's the UV-17R. We'll take a look at the Radioddity GC-5. We'll put this one on here, going through our same 50 dB of attenuation. We're on 146.5. We'll start off on low power. All right, so here is the Radioddity GC-5 low power. And as you can see, it's very, very similar to the UV-17R. On low power, we're putting out 1.16 watts. Our second harmonic is only 8 dB down from the fundamental frequency. Our third harmonic is minus 36 dB down from the fundamental frequency. and our fourth harmonic is minus 38 dB down from the fundamental. So all second, third, and fourth harmonics all fail. They're all above 25 microwatts, and they are all less than 40 dB down from the fundamental frequency. Let's check high power. All right, on high power, well, our second harmonic is minus 33 dB down from the fundamental, and considerably above the 25 microwatt line. So that is a fail right away. Our third harmonic and fourth harmonics now on high power are 55 and 61 dB down from the fundamental, which that passes. Honestly, I would say here maybe our third and fourth now are below that 25 microwatt line. The third one's very close, but I'd say that I would give a pass on the third and fourth harmonics, but the second one is still considerably bad in the fail range. So there you go. That's what the Radioddity GC-5 looks like. Very similar to the UV-17R. And then we will move on to our Baofeng UV-21PRO. You know, obviously the Pro model must be good, right? For professional radio operation. What are the bets? Think it uses the same radio as the rest of these?
Menu.
All right, we are on low power. All right, so here we go, 146.5. Oh, looks pretty familiar. Kind of looks like the previous two radios. Our second harmonic is 13 dB down from the primary. Our third harmonic is 33.5 dB down from the fundamental. And our fourth is 31 dB down from the fundamental frequency. So second, third, and fourth harmonics all fail. They're all considerably above the 25 microwatt line and all less than 40 dB down from the fundamental frequency. So that's a fail all the way across the board. Let's go ahead and switch to high power. Well, this one stays actually pretty much the same across the board. So this one's even worse. High power doesn't even give it any benefit. 4.6 watts out of the fundamental frequency. Still only 18 dB down on the second harmonic, 36 dB down on the third harmonic, and right at the magic 39 to 40 dB down on the fourth. But looking at all three of those harmonics, all considerably above the 25 microwatt line. So this radio gets a fail all the way across the board as well. So now that we've looked at those three, now take a look at this UV-17, which I just find this interesting to me because this was the radio that I ordered initially. Like I said, as a UV-17R. The label on the back of the radio does say that it's a UV-17R, but as you can tell, it's got a different voice and a much different interface than the other radios.
Menu.
So let's make sure that we are on low power, and we are. All right, oh, we're slightly off frequency though. Let's fix that. All right, 146.5 on low power. Now, this is the UV-17. Look at that. On low power, 1.8 watts. Our second harmonic is minus 57 dB down from the fundamental. Our third harmonic is minus 60 dB down. Our fourth harmonic is 70 dB down. All more than 40 dB down, and all three below 25 microwatts. So this is an acceptable radio. Let's check high power. 5.26 watts on high power. Our second harmonic, minus 65, 63, 65 dB down. Our third harmonic, minus 68 to minus 70 dB down. Our fourth harmonic, minus 77 to 79 dB down from the primary. All very good, all underneath the 25 microwatt line, and all considerably over 40 dB down from the fundamental frequency. So this radio with the less aesthetic menu or less aesthetic display actually is the clean radio. And also the radio that came with the USB charging battery, which I think is a positive for this radio. It's probably not as neat as the others when it comes to the display. This radio also, unfortunately, it doesn't have the ability to. I've taken the antenna off, but this one does have, I think, FM receive, but it does not have the weather in the radio, which is interesting. Let me grab the antennas for these other radios, and I'll just put them on really quick. The UV-17R,
Welcome.
you know, with
Frequency mode.
I think the better looking screen, has the FM radio function and also has
On.
20 knots. Seas 2 to 3 feet. Lay and
Off.
the NOAA weather radio, which the Radioddity GC-5, obviously since these are all based
Welcome. Frequency mode.
on the same firmware,
On.
Attention, your special someone.
Off. On.
Lay and inlet waters a moderate chop. Friday, northeast winds 5 to 10 knots.
Off.
so all three of these radios all have the same functionality when it comes to that, and that's just a feature that
Welcome. Frequency mode.
this one has extra buttons too. This center button doesn't appear to do anything, which is interesting. It does have the A/B button for switching between the two, and it also has the
Channel mode. Frequency mode.
VFO MR button for switching between VFO and memory channels, which is nice. But then it has
All right, we got some new.
Off.
and also has NOAA,
On.
Coastal waters forecast for tarpon spring.
Off.
which makes sense because, you know, all of these radios I think are all based on the same firmware and same probably hardware board. And I will take these apart and we'll have a look on the inside as probably the little last section of this kind of impromptu video here. So that's it for this portion of the bench. Let me get these radios apart and we'll take a look at the inside. Okay. Well, we have all those opened now. And let's see what we've got here. So I think what you can see here is this is a BF UV-17 HD 1.1 2023 5/26. So it looks like manufacturing in May 26th of 2023. This was the UV-17R, the black radio. Then this is a BF UV-19 HD version 1.0, manufactured in looks like maybe March 20th of 2023. Interesting. So this is the GC5, the GC5. Yeah. So this is the Radioddity GC5, and it's actually listed as a Baofeng UV-19 on the board, and was from March. So this is actually, it makes sense now too, because if you look, the Baofeng that had the newer firmware on it, obviously then was manufactured 2 months after the other radio. And it is a different, if you look, it is a different board. I wish I could get a little bit further out here. I'm not usually, but you can see that there's a little bit of different component placement here. And we get a little bit deeper in here, we could take these out and take a look at the back and see what we're looking at for filtering, but I don't know if it's even worth digging in much deeper on these. So so then we have this is the UV-21PRO, and it is obviously a UV-21. And it was also manufactured in March of 2023. It is definitely kind of interesting. Completely, this is actually a little bit of, well, yeah, it's a little bit of a different board layout. Look, they've turned the screen sideways. Put this over here so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. Kind of interesting. The UV-21, obviously a little bit different board layout, longer, rotated the screen, kind of interesting. And then the good old, this is the one that's listed as a UV-17R, but this is the, I think, just the UV-17 as is listed here on the board. And that one we're looking at September of 2022. So obviously a little bit older board, but is also the only clean radio of the bunch if you're looking at just harmonics. So rather interesting. So there is the different board dates and model numbers inside these radios. I think with no surprise at all that the UV, it's interesting, I guess. This is the other part here where, like I say, both of these are listed as UV-17Rs. UV-17R and UV-17R. And one is a UV-17 from 5/26 of 2023, and one is a UV-17 from 9/15/2022. So, actually, when you're looking at it, though, the board layouts are rather similar between these two. So it does make me wonder if it is possible to somehow put the firmware from the newer radio on this older one. Maybe it is worth digging in a little bit deeper and seeing if the microprocessor on the other side is the same or not. It would be kind of interesting to see if we could get the better display and menu on the older radio that's clean and end up with actually at least maybe one radio that I would feel comfortable transmitting on. Okay, so here's the boards out of the UV-17 and the UV-17R. What I am finding really interesting right off here is to see if I can find where the differences might be in regards to why one is clean and one is not. And right off the bat, I am not seeing a tremendous amount of differences here. First, I'll show you here under the microscope as best as I can. Here's the UV-17, and what's interesting here, this all looks the same. Trying to see if I can get that so you guys can read that there. And then now this is the UV-17R. And to me, I just don't know. This looks a lot, you know, like when I was looking at the UV-5Rs, I could definitely see that the filtering was different. They had a different number of inductors. And this is just looking like a lot like the same. And then the CPU here. It's possible that that might be a, we'll have to look up the specs here and see if we can figure out what the differences on the microprocessor might be, but I don't know if I can somehow get the two of these in here. When you're looking at this part of the radio, it's looking very, very similar. So I don't know if I have a lot of answers there. I am curious to know whether or not I could get the new firmware to run on this older radio. I might give that a shot and see if I can figure out a way of doing that. But for now, I think I will get these things reassembled and we'll finish up the video. Can I do one of those magic things where I go like this? All right. Well, that's pretty much all these back together.
Welcome. Frequency mode. Welcome. Frequency mode. Welcome. Frequency mode.
All right. Oh, hey, a little quick cheater tidbit for anybody wanting to take these little radios apart. Here's a little secret, and this I actually use this for these other radios. If you have a UV-5R just hanging around, the little knob here at the top for your power and volume, it just so happens that this is the perfect little built-in tool for taking this nut off of your antenna mount. If you don't have the tool handy, and which I didn't right now, so I actually went and got a UV-5R and used it for taking the antenna little nut off, and you can tighten it back up and you're good to go. The interesting thing is that none of these actually this one radio here actually had the same indentions on it for doing the antenna, but it's not deep enough to get to on this radio, so I went and got a UV-5R, and see, it doesn't work on that one either, and it worked great. So little trick there for you. So in summary, basically these three radios are all almost the same as far as functionality. These two for sure are on the same board, just a different revision of firmware on these between the Baofeng UV-17R with the 1.11 firmware and the Radioddity GC-5 with the 0.08 firmware. And then the Baofeng UV-17 that I have, very interesting that the boards are very, very similar in layout, but this one is clean and this one is not. So a little bit of research, I think, see if we can figure out what's going on there. If anybody has any ideas, drop them in the comments below if you would. Also, if you have some ideas on maybe how I can get the 1.11 firmware onto the older radio, I'm not sure if we can just try to use the same CPS software, or if that microcontroller that's on this radio might be maybe a little bit newer than this one. I'm not really sure. So this one obviously is a little bit of a different board, but still running the same firmware. So all three of these are junk, and I would never actually use these to transmit in the ham bands. And this radio is actually clean. So if you like these kind of videos, tearing these radios apart and looking on the insides and stuff, let me know, and we can do more of those on specific radios in the future. Please like and subscribe if you think that that would be a neat thing to do. I would appreciate it. I like making these videos for y'all, and I hope you like watching them. So until next time, 7 threes.